Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Of All Trades with Nolan Robinson. I'm your host, Nolan Robinson. I have a super special and exciting guest on the show today. His name is Robert Horn. He won a Tony last year for writing the book to the comedy musical Tootsie. He also wrote the scripts to several Disney Channel original movies like Teen Beach Movie 1 and 2, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure, the spinoff to the High School Musical series, and the Sweet Life movie. He is a dear mentor of mine, dear friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have him on today. So, Robert, would you come in?
Am I in?
Yes, you're in, and we are ready to talk.
Nolan! But they
It's
don't
good
know
to see
I
you.
was actually there the whole time, but okay.
Yeah, he was there, but you're a
All right.
guest. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it earlier, but behind you, it's amazing. You have the Tootsie poster, and you have, your 13 and your Teen Beach Movie poster. Oh, and there's Sharpay. I see her behind you. This is your office,
Oh,
correct?
wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
give
is
us
my
a view.
office. And I'm not really allowed to hang any uh, any of my accomplishments in the actual house. So I have an office in the back, which is a separate building. And so this becomes my vanity. These are my vanity walls, which I never expect anybody to come into, but suddenly in the time of a pandemic, everybody's coming into your house. So I figured maybe I would do one of those Zoom backgrounds where it's like Jennifer Aniston's house instead. But I'm like, oh well, welcome
I
to my
mean,
life.
yours is pretty good. I would take yours any day. It's like there's a Tony Award behind you and a Drama Desk Award behind you. It's like
Yeah, those was fun.
that's legit.
A year ago now. That was all a year ago. I can't believe it. Yeah.
I know. I remember meeting you actually. It was so before Tootsie went to Broadway. It was a tryout in Chicago, and I remember this is a story for the audience. Robert, I don't know if you remember this, but it was during intermission, and I saw you. You were carrying a notepad, and in my head, I'm like, oh well, this person must be super involved with the show. Like, who would be taking notes on a night out to the theater? And I went up to you, and I'm like, are you involved with the show? And you said, yeah, I'm Robert. I'm the book writer. And then I saw your name in the playbill after, and then saw what you had written, like 13 and, the Sweet Life movie and the Teen Beach movies. And I didn't know that, the person that I just spoke to influenced so much of my upbringing on Disney Channel. So I'd like to commend you for that. You started, so to my knowledge, you studied theater at New York, and then you traveled to Los Angeles for film. Yeah.
I did for television. Yeah, I studied theater at NYU and Circle and Square. Initially, foolishly wanting to be an actor, of which I have no ability, which is one of the, I love actors so much because they do what I absolutely can. And, but it was a tough time in New York, and it's a theater, especially at that time, was a really hard club to break into. And I had some family out in California, so I said, oh, I'm going to go out to LA for a while, and I'll look into maybe doing television because I'm also a child of TV and love it. And sort of that's what happened. I started to get a career in television and I got very lucky very fast, and because there's a lot of talented people, but I just got lucky and started on a TV show called Designing Women, which was an iconic television show back in the 90s, and sort of from there went on to a bunch of series like Living Single and High Society, and all just ended up doing TV for years and years and years, but always wanted to get back into theater.
Yeah, so you said you called yourself a child of television. Was there a particular TV movie or TV show that you watched growing up that piqued your interest in wanting to be a television writer?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I loved all of those, All in the Family and all the shows that sort of pushed the envelope at a time when there was a lot to talk about in our country in terms of politics, and all of those great, that whole school of Mel Brooks and Neil Simon and those kind of great comedies. So that's really what made me say I really want to do this for a living.
Yeah, and let's kind of talk about your work. So, let's classify everything in between 13 and Tootsie. So 13 is, your one of your first major musicals.
Well, it was my third.
Was it your third? Oh, I'm so
third,
sorry.
third or fourth. No, that's okay, because they all sort of met sad fates before that. So one of them,
Yeah.
there was this. It's sort of legendary if you know if you're sort of really immersed in the theater world, but it was a show called Lone Star Love, and Randy Quaid was starring in it, and we were out of town in Seattle at the Fifth Avenue Theater, ready to come into New York, and as both Vanity Fair and the New York Times did articles on this, Randy Quaid there was a big implosion of Randy Quaid and his wife and the show, and it all exploded, and we never ended up coming. Our marquee was up in New York, actually, and we never ended up coming in. And then I also had done a show called Dame Edna, Back with a Vengeance, who was a great Australian iconic comic who had two shows on Broadway. The second one I worked on with him. And so those were both prior to 13, theater-wise.
Wow. I did not know that. So did you, because of those and the lessons you learned from those shows, did you think that 13 would have the same fate? Or did you think that it was going to be the success that it is today?
Well, I don't ever go into something wondering what the fate of it is going to be. I just go in trying to do the best I can do and hopefully have a joyful collaboration. So 13 had already, there's an iconic television and Broadway producer named Bob Boyette, 10 Tony nominations. He basically, I don't know, you may be a little young for this, but he and his partner Tom Miller created TGIF. So they did Family Matters and Full House and Step by Step and all those great iconic TV shows. And then he went off and became a theater producer. And I knew him from, we had worked together in LA. And so he called me and he said, I've got this show in LA opening at the Amundsen or Mark Taper. And he said, I'd love for you to come and see it and let me know your thoughts. And it was an early version of 13. And of course I knew Jason Robert Brown's work, and I went and saw it and I said, I don't know, I think there's something there. And he then called me and said, well, we're going to bring it into New York. I would like you to write it. And I said, great. And it happened very fast. Basically, Jason was living in LA and I went to his house and we had a meeting together and we really hit it off. And we just said, let's do this. We're going to open at good speed in 6 months. And we just dove in and wrote it. And it was, yeah. But I knew there was something special about it. It was a weird thing because 13 opened at a time when, when the economy, 12 shows closed the same day we did. It was a tough time to do theater because the economy had tanked and the housing market happened and crisis happened and it was horrible. And also,
kind of sounds like what's happening today.
Yeah. But also things were a little different then, and it was hard to say we're going to sell a show at $175 a ticket with a bunch of 13-year-old kids in it. Little did we know it would be Ariana Grande and Liz Gillis and on and on and a great group of kids. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, let's and I'm glad you mentioned them because I kind of wanted to talk about them. So if people listening don't know, so the show starred Ariana Grande and Liz Gillies,
Graham Phillip,
and
Simon Gross, and
Aaron,
and just a fun group of kids, really fun group of kids. Allie Trim,
Yeah, and in your shoes, being the person who wrote the show and got to see them perform the show and seeing what they're up to today, are you like a proud playwright, a proud papa?
Like a proud god papa. Because as your audience probably knows, doing theater is such an insular art, and especially when you're working on a show out of town, you so become a community, you so become a family. This was an interesting one because it was the kids and all their parents. But I very much, especially in theater, when I'm doing theater, I really try to write to the actor that is going to be playing that part. You sort of have to write it knowing other actors are going to eventually take over that track. And so it has to be written so that everybody can do it. But you really so you work closely with the actors, even as kids. And you become really bonded with them. I think Jason and I really, to this day, we're really close with most of those kids. In fact, we're actually doing a reunion podcast this afternoon after this. With
my goodness.
A bunch of the kids. So yeah, and it was we were all in this little town in Connecticut, Goodspeed in Haddam, North Haddam, and I really bonded with them. And I knew they were incredibly talented. I knew the show was really funny. I did not know it would have the afterlife that it has. I mean, I don't know if you know, we're actually making a movie at Netflix of 13 right now. So I never anticipated that it would have the resonance that it ended up having. I just was like, how do you make 13-year-old kids funny?
Yeah, exactly. And, that's in part due to, of course, your script and, Jason Robert Brown's music. And of course, the kids that brought that show to life. It's, we got to see them do it first. And now everyone's like, oh, I need to be in the show. And yes, I did hear about the Netflix movie adaptation. So congratulations on that.
That was shocking to me. We just got a call out of the blue saying that we want to do this. We didn't even have to pitch it. There's the executive at Netflix who heads that department, saw it on Broadway and was a big fan of it. And she was actually at Disney. She worked as an executive, Nikita Maddox, her name is, and she worked as an executive at Disney, and I did Teen Beach with her. She was my executive there. And she used to always talk about 13. And so when she moved over to Netflix, she said, the first musical I want to make is 13. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, and so you just mentioned Teen Beach. What was the process of your process of writing for those movies? Was it something that you had pitched to the network, or did they bring you on to it from your other work? How did that work?
Teen Beach was an idea that they had that they were looking for a writer to write. And I think what had happened is it was a really interesting big thing, Nolan, because I'm not a my career in television for 25 years was very adult comedy. I mean, Living Single and Designing Women and tons of shows. It was all very adult. And then I did 13, and suddenly people wanted me to write young adult, and I had never done it, and it wasn't that it didn't interest me. It's not something I pursued. And then they had originally came to me to do a little work on this movie called The Sweet Life. There was a series on Disney called Sweet Life, and they were making a movie, and I needed me to come in and help make it funny and punch it up, and I did. And from that, they asked me if they were doing a spin-off of the Sharpay character from High School Musical, and said, do you want to write it? And in those days, back then, nobody was doing musicals on television. Mm-hmm. You couldn't sell a musical. So any chance I could have to write a musical, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I actually had not seen the High School Musical movies. And so I didn't even know the character, not seen it. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I came up with an idea and just wrote the movie. And then from that, they wanted me to do, it did really well. And so they wanted me to do another one. And they had this idea for Teen Beach and pitched the idea to me. And I said, yeah, I'd write that. That sounds like fun. And that's how it happened. It took about a year to write it.
Wow. And it's one of my favorite movies. I was just looking up the data of, the viewership with, the Disney Channel musicals, and the Teen Beach franchise is really up there. So you've contributed so much to the Disney Channel culture, which is amazing.
Thank you. It's by accident, I promise you.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you about the writing of Tootsie as well. So I remember when I was in New York last year, I got to sit in on a tech rehearsal, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. Like just seeing everyone on the stage and seeing it not, yeah, what was that?
So exciting. It's boring. Tech is boring. When you have a director like Scott Ellis, it's never boring because he keeps it fun every day. Truly, you need a great captain. When you do in theater, you really need a great captain. And for that, I had Scott Ellis and working side by side with David Yazbek. And so it was every day was fun. I remember the day you were there. I mean, we were always laughing.
Yeah, you said that you write this. So what was my question to you? I think it was because Tootsie is a hit comedy movie, and you were in charge of writing the script for this comedy musical. And I was curious to see how much of the movie did you put into this musical, or how much that influenced it. And I think I remember you saying when approaching this script, you pretended as if there wasn't a movie to go off of. So that way you weren't emulating every single scene, every single piece of dialogue that you saw in the movie. Am I correct in saying that? Can you talk a bit about that process?
Yeah, I can. You know, it is an iconic movie. It's AFI's #2 comedy of all time. People are so loyal. They're such loyalists to that movie. And it's interesting too because when they came to me to do it, I said no, I didn't want to do it because I felt like, wow, that's a really big target on your back.
Yeah.
Gelbart, who wrote the screenplay, is iconic and one of my idols. And I felt like I don't want to put my name on his work. I don't even know that I'm deserving of that. And I had no desire to do something that already existed. But at its core was a great story about theater, I made it about theater. David and I decided that it would be about theater instead of soap operas, which is what the movie was. But I knew that I couldn't be locked to anything from the movie, that we had to tell our own story. Yet Yazbek and I both we talked about it for almost a year. We knew we had to do our story our way. So much of the movie wouldn't work in the political culture that we're in. It had to be looked at as a great idea, a great concept, which is, if you were told you could no longer do the one thing you loved more than anything, what would you do? And about a narcissistic guy who is faced with that decision and makes a lot of bad choices. And in all of our desire to be successful in this business and to work as artists, what would you do if somebody told you you couldn't do that anymore? And that was enough for us to start. And as long as we kept honoring that part of the story, we knew we'd be okay. And then we just made it our own. I think there were 3 lines from the movie, or 4 lines at the most from the movie. I knew that if I was locked to anything from, we did our version first, and then said, are there any lines that we just feel could work, or anything from that we could bring back in? And so pretty much it's based on the movie, but it's all ours.
And I loved it when I saw it in Chicago, and I didn't even get to, oh, you're welcome. I didn't even get to see what it ended up being, because I know after that tryout, you all did more revisions. So if what I saw was spectacular in my eyes, I couldn't even imagine what it ended up being on Broadway. And the acclaim that the show received and your book received, that's just astounding. And I kind of want to compare that to the shows that you spoke to me about earlier in our conversation, the ones that didn't do so well before 13. Did those shows, did you lose hope at all in your writing? Did you think, oh, well, these, didn't end up being what I wanted them to be, so maybe I'll just not write? How did you bounce from those?
That's a good question, Nolan.
Thank you.
No, I never, the reason I'm sitting here talking to you, and the reason I have accolades and things behind me, which mean nothing but mean everything, because it's sort of you're being acknowledged by your peers, is because you this is a really tough business, and you have to, your number one commodity is yourself, and you have to believe in yourself. And when things don't work, or things don't succeed the way you hope they will, it's always I know this is going to sound really cliche, but it's true. It's always a lesson. It's always what can I learn from that? How can I do it differently? If you give up, then you shouldn't be in the business, because it is tough. It's a really hard business. And it's hard in that it's hard to get that opportunity. I always say opportunity is the serendipitous meeting of ability and opportunity. That's what success is. And you have to get the opportunity, but you have to be prepared when it happens. And so I never gave up. I got discouraged at times, but that only makes me work harder. That only makes me say, and I'm really good at shifting blame on an audience and say, oh, they didn't get it. But no, I mean, you say, what?
As do actors. Actors do that all the time.
Oh, yeah, all the time. They shift the blame to me. That's with that book. So, but I never gave up. I always believed in myself. I always, and to this day, say, I have a lot to learn. And you just you keep going, and you just keep trying to make the next one as good as you can make it, and do your best work, and hope that it resonates with an audience and it catches on. Some things, listen, some things can be successful but don't last. Some things can not be great but last a long time. Art is such a subjective thing, and there's no explaining it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I've just see that's very mindset. Everything you just said, I've, really see that from every piece of work that you've done. And that's advice that people my age and my generation can definitely look up
I'm amazed
to.
by your generation because your generation is so I love mentoring, young artists because I believe I stand on the shoulders of so many great people who gave me opportunities and who taught me. And at the Bob Boyettes and Tom Schumachers and David Steinbergs, who, if you all don't know them, get on Google right now, and because these are people who taught my generation and still are. So I think it's important to pass that on to the next generation. And I'm amazed because your generation has so many opportunities. Um, uh, that we didn't have, so many ways to create your own content. There were no podcasts when I started. There was no YouTube. There was no there you your generation has the ability to create and their own art and have it manifest out into the world so quickly. And I'm watching what kids are doing now, and it's amazing. The talent that's out there and the creativity and ingenuity that's out there is it's I'm like, I've been eating, maybe I should retire because I can never think of that stuff.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, just because of my experience at Northwestern, and I've said this to so many people throughout my time there. But it's insane the level of wanting to create new works. Northwestern musical wise. It's like we have the WAMU show, which is it's been around for close to 90 years, where students write their own musical. We have production companies on campus for people to just do their own work, theater boards for people to write their own plays and act in them with their friends. It's just insane the level of wanting to put yourself out into the world. And of course we have to credit your generation for doing that for us. We see your work and we're like, we want to do just that as well. So yeah.
The thing that I always say is, the problem when not the problem, but the danger with social media and the availability of getting your work out there is everybody's a couch critic now. So you put something out there, and the most important thing is, is to not listen to trust your instincts, learn from people who have something to teach you. But trust your instincts and don't listen to what anybody else says, because you got to create your own art and you have to decide what you think is good. But listen, it's important to absorb what it is that people teach you that have something to teach you, and to improve your art craft and keep learning. But if I listened to what everybody said about my work all those years, I never would have had success. I would have given up. So many people, you spend your life as an artist being told no. That's it. If you go into it for money or anything other than the gratification and the need to express yourself, don't, because it's a life of struggle. But you have to believe in your voice and know that it's your singular voice. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it. And success comes or it doesn't. You have no control over that. All you can do is the footwork and just keep evolving your art. It's true. I know it sounds cliche and it sounds like a commencement speech, but it's
No, you better preach, Robert. You better
really
preach.
true. It's really true, because I swear to you, there is no reason I should be sitting here other than not giving up and not listening to when people told me I wasn't good.
Mm. So there is, it's a balancing act. Yeah, it's, being open to what people have to say, but also knowing that, what they say doesn't define what you bring to the world.
Right. It's absolutely.
Ah,
You know what? What's the Sondheim lyric? Stop worrying if your vision is new. Let others make that decision. They usually do. Just keep moving on. People are going to decide what they think about your art. If that paralyzes you in any way, you shouldn't be an artist.
that Sondheim lyric is a prime example of the art being applicable to everything. So yes, thank you for saying that. And can we talk a bit about how you're navigating through this pandemic? So you said that you've been on Zoom meetings for long amount of time, and even this meeting was so difficult to put together because we're both so busy. So how, I know actors are out of work, how is this affecting your work? Are you even more busy than the past or less busy? How is that working?
It's interesting because in as a writer and producer, you, especially with theater takes a long time. Getting a show to Broadway or even wherever you're going with it takes a long time, and so you have to take I sort of balance between television and film. So I'm in LA right now. Usually I'm half in New York, half here. So I do TV and theater, and you're always juggling 6 or 7 or 8 projects at one time, because for me, my job isn't writing, my job is time management. So I know, okay, that's going to be due in a month, that's going to be due by then, and you figure it all out. But what's happened is, because shows have shut down and rehearsal has shut down and production has shut down, everybody's now focusing on development. And so I've got like 6 projects in development, and suddenly all of that is coming to the forefront. So it's been a little crazy, because normally what would span out over a year or 2 is all happening right now. So it's been a little intense, but it's sort of a blessing in that I'm not just, I have something to do while I'm quarantining. So it's been busy, and different stages of development. I've got the theater projects that I've got coming in are all in different stages, but we're all still working and we're all still creating the best that we can. We're not letting it stop us, because we know that soon enough there'll be a time for us to present it to the world, and it's all about now being ready for when that is.
And
Right now.
yeah, and I know that we'll be ready to see what you bring to the world when this thing is over. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I had a question.
Was it a
Like,
local train? Was it an express train?
oh, I don't even know. It's so far off the track now that nobody remembers what it looked like. But I'll segue into my next point then. How are you staying? Oh, I remember, it had to do with staying hopeful. So how are you? Because I'm sure you're stressed out with the work that you have to do and the world being just messed up right now. So how are you? Staying hopeful. How are you managing your stress?
Um, well, I think we all have good days and bad days. It's an interesting thing in that I spend so much of my time isolated as a writer. It's a very isolating art form. The great thing about theater is it's very collaborative. So when you're rehearsing and you get to that phase of it, you're with a lot of people. But I spend a lot of time when I'm writing alone anyway. So I'm a little more able to adapt to this, but it's scary. And it's also, I think we all miss we're a communal people. We like to be with other people and be out there and amongst our own. And so I think it's struggling every day. I wake up some days, I don't know what day it is, but
Yep, that's all of us.
but I have my dog who is right there, and you just get through it. And I get up. I'm on a strict schedule. I've always been a very regimented person. I get up at like 4:30 every morning. I write for like 5 or 6 hours. So by lunch, I've gotten a lot of my writing done. And then whatever, I can write more in the afternoon, or then have the day to not, because output is important, but input is important also. And so I think we're just all getting by and waiting. And I try not to watch too much of the news because it can be really scary and depressing. And we just sort of hope that we will get through this, and we just have to keep our sanity while we do. But what's great about it is so much great art is coming from this. You're never at a loss for something to watch. I'm actually watching TV shows that I have not gotten to. I'm communicating with people that you can be, sometimes when you get really busy, it's hard. You forget, oh man, I really forgot to call so-and-so, or I forgot to text so-and-so. So I'm staying in communication with people, which I don't always get to do. So there are silver linings.
Yeah,
I also have silver fillings, but that's a different.
Oh man, This is why you're a comedy writer, and why we love your
That's
jokes.
why I don't get work. Those,
And I was just reading, well, not just, this was a while ago, but I had read about one of the shows that you're working on, the football book club. How's that coming along so far?
that's a TV show. That's a TV
Yeah.
show. A pilot that I'm doing at Fox Television, and it's good. I'm turning in what is probably my final draft this week. So it's based on a true story, and I love, listen, I love television, so I'm excited about that project, and we'll see what happens. TV now is at a standstill, so there's a very sort of rigid yearly schedule on how TV works, and that's been thrown off. So I don't know, but I turned in a draft the end of last week, and I'll do another pass, and we'll turn it in this week, and we'll see if that's going to go into get picked up. And then I have another pilot that I'm in the middle of pitching, which is actually a theater-based TV project, which I love. And there's a bunch of that stuff. And then I've got like 3 or 4 shows lined up for musicals lined up for New York. My next one was supposed to open in DC at the National Theater in September. And of course, they canceled the season.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen, but we'll probably end up coming in next season.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone about this in the entertainment industry. And like you said, there's a yearly cycle with television shows, with most of them coming back on the air in September, and then the seasons go through May or earlier or whatever. I told him, I said, I think there will be a time period, hopefully it's not long, where just nothing on television is new because there's nothing has been made.
That'll happen because most networks have stuff in the can. We have a lot of stuff ahead of time. And I think there may be stuff that they were going to potentially cancel that they won't, and they have a backlog of material. There's always stuff also that can be thrown together. There's another reality show or another something or another, there'll always be content that can be made from somebody's studio. So I don't think that will happen, but I don't think you'll get the abundance of new things that you might normally get right away. But we'll see. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And while you were talking, I was looking back at your awards, and this is a question that I have, from someone who is a performer and a writer, and hopefully along this journey, I am recognized like that. Do you ever, look at that and, it's a Tony Award, it's the highest recognition you can get on Broadway. Do you ever think, well, what's next? It's like, I want a Tony. What's after this?
Another Tony. I'm not happy with just one. No, it's funny because I was having this conversation last night because it was about a year ago now that we were gearing up for the Tony Awards. This was the award season for last season. And it was crazy. And I was looking back on it, I was like, wow, that was a year ago. But I don't, an award is just it's really just an acknowledgement of a good job, a great job, or a good job even that you did, and from your community that says, for me, it was a welcoming to the theater community, that an acknowledgement that that they had accepted me as part of them. It has nothing to do with, listen, I'm not gonna lie, there was some pros to it. I spend a lot of time in my career chasing after projects, trying to get something made. When you win an award like a Tony Award, people come to you, and that's a luxury that you don't always have. I worked a lot of years to get to it, so it was a lovely payoff for that. But every day of my career has always been what's next, what's next, what's next. I'm always working on what I'm working on and thinking what's going to be next and what do I want to say now. And I look at the world. One of the great things I think to come out of the crisis right now is so much great art so many people are going to have a lot of things to say. I already know I do. And so I'm excited to dive into where we are. I believe that years from now, when people look back at a certain time in history, they'll look at the art that came out of that time and understand society. And so I think it's our job to create that, to not only reflect the era that we're living in, but also to represent who we are and where we are as a culture, as a society for years from now for people to look back at.
Do you ever have too many ideas in your mind and you're like, oh no, I got to focus on this one, or, you know, a filter whether what's more important to tell right now and what can wait?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I'll be honest. Yes, I mean, I think you have dry spells and you have really fertile times. So yeah, I'm always generating ideas. The ones that tend to come to the surface are the ones that pay. You know, when you get a job and you're going to get paid for it. When you do theater, you often are betting on yourself. You don't make, as a writer, I don't make money up front in theater. You could work for years, 5 or 6 years on a musical or play, but let's say for me on a musical, and then it doesn't come to be, or it opens and closes, and I'll make no money off of that. So the projects that do pay you, you have to also sustain. So you push to the front the ones that you know are going to send you a check, and then also the ones that you're really passionate about or that become the most defined. When you have a project that you're like, I know what that is, then you sort of can't help it. It just starts to pour out of you. And then there are some you're like, this is a really good idea, but I have no idea what it is yet. You let that ruminate.
Yeah. In your career, were you ever working on a project that you're like, oh, well, this is nice. I'm really only doing this one just because, it pays well? Or was there another one that you're like, oh, I really wish I could be working on this right now, but, I just got to focus on this one at the moment?
Yeah. My God, yes. I've been lucky in that most of the stuff that I've done, I've loved. And I also think there are ways to find something in everything. I think as an actor, you might get cast in something that is not necessarily the best material, but you find a way to relate to it and to make it your own and to find something that you're passionate about in it. So for however long it lasts, you feel like you're bringing something to it. So yeah, I mean, there's stuff I've done for money that haven't been my favorite ideas or my favorite things, but I always find something that I can relate to in it or that excites me about it. Oh, I think I always have. I always do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I'm as a student and I'm still growing. I'm only 21 next week. I am always
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's on Memorial Day, so close.
Wait,
Close.
really?
Yes. Yeah, so any other time everything would have been closed anyway, so I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere, but during this pandemic everything is closed, so it's like I wouldn't have been missing out anyway. But as a student, I'm always balancing with, oh, what do I have to do now? I think a good analogy is, schoolwork versus work that I'd like to do. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, I really want to do this. I really want to write this script, but right now let me focus on the schoolwork because I know that'll pave the way for me to be able to do this other work that I'm really passionate about in the moment. So thank you for that. That was very wise.
And the schoolwork, what you don't always realize is that the stuff that you don't really want to do is this stuff that prepares you for the stuff that you do, and you don't realize it until you dive into the stuff that you do and you realize, oh, okay, I one thing really leads into and prepares you for the other. You just don't see it in the moment.
Yeah. You can say the same about lots of things, like the struggles we face, or, the rejections. You talked about all the no's that people get in the business. It sucks in the moment, but you can't see just how this is going to prepare you for, the thing that you're actually going to get a yes for.
And it gives you a resilience. It's, you've got to have a thick skin in this business. And each time, what happens is it's not that the rejections hurt any less. It's that you give them less weight, and that you start to realize sometimes it has nothing to do with you or your work. Who knows? There are many reasons why people say no, what happens is you start to care less, and you start to say, fine, then I'll move on. What's next?
I've been fortunate because I go to school close to Chicago,
You're in
and
Northwestern, right?
yeah, I'm at Northwestern. Go
Right.
Cats.
Yeah. Great department, great school.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and just being there, I have received yeses, of course, but so many more no's, and I've been able to begin to form that thick skin that's needed in this industry. So I'm really glad that you're saying that to the audience, and of course, teaching it to me as well. But it really does go a long way to be able to, because I know when I was a freshman, I auditioned for a cappella groups, and a cappella is like a huge thing at Northwestern. I actually believe Pitch Perfect was inspired by the Northwestern a cappella scene. But I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't get any callbacks for like the 5 or 6 groups I auditioned for. I was completely devastated. And it was because my advisor told me that it's because I base my worth and my success off of what I get and what I don't get. And in these past 3.5 years, pretty much 4 years, I've learned that just because I get a no has no effect on what I bring to the world, has no effect on my talent or skill. It's just, I was just not right at this moment. Something else will come along, and I will just keep working until that one yes comes. So thank you again for sharing that wisdom.
Well, my pleasure. Listen, I didn't get my first professional job until I was, I think, 28.
Yeah.
But it's true. You can't define your worth on other people's opinions, but you can learn, and you can figure out what went wrong, or I mean, the best that you can. And also, I was going to do it. I was going to do a joke, but I'm not going to do it. I hear a child, so I won't do the joke.
Yeah, there's my little niece in the corner.
Morons. What could
Yeah.
Some people are just idiots.
Yeah, that's true.
Move on.
And we're nearing the end, but I also wanted to talk about just the aspect of time. I know that people my age get so caught up with needing to do something right away because they're like, oh, well, life isn't forever. It's so short. I need to, do all the things. What do you have to say about that? You said you didn't get your first professional role until you were 28 years old, and, you won a Tony Award just last year. Yeah, what do you have to say? I'm sorry?
29.
Yeah, at 29. What any advice, any wisdom you have towards people that are like, I guess the Hamiltons of our lives, the people who do stuff because they think they're running out of time?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. As you get older, you start to really value time and realize how quickly it slips through our fingers. Especially look at what we're living through now to see how fragile life is and how precarious it is. And so I think my suggestion would be, don't rush time, but don't waste time. I think I've always been a very impulsive, aggressive person. There's literally not a day goes by where I have to accomplish something every day, whether it's writing, whether it's reading, I can't just be idle. That's just my personality. But I don't think it's such a bad thing to be in a hurry. I think you can't rush something. If it's not ready, it's not ready. But I think you should also be aggressive and act as though time is running out, because that's what will put you ahead of other people. It's competitive. You have to want it and go for it as much or more than the person standing next to you. And so I don't think it's such a bad thing to be in a rush, but I think it's a bad thing to rush things that aren't ready. And that means both our talent and specific and projects and whatever that is. Things have a way of being when they're ready to be, and things will happen the way they're supposed to. But you can't, it's like I always say, you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you choose to deal with it. And it's the same with success. You can't control when it's going to happen, but it's a constant preparation for when it does. It's not such a bad thing to be in a hurry. but it is a bad thing to rush something before it's time.
Mm. Do you know what bars are? Like if someone said, "Oh, Robert Scott bars," would you know what they're saying?
No, but whatever
Oh
that
no,
whatever that
it's a
bar is, I'll go to it.
no, it's okay. It's usually like in regards to rapping. It's like, oh, they just said, like a dope rhyme. You've got bars. I was going to say, Robert, everything that you said right now, you're just bars. You're just spitting straight fire.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad I could teach you something today.
I was spitting. Okay. Oh, I have so much to learn. Believe me.
Well, I'm glad you learned that. So now, whenever you're around people and you hear something, powerful, you're like, oh, bars, and then you get to teach them.
Use that, and everybody's gonna go, what?
Yeah, just say it's a my generation thing.
Just me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this has been so great. Hearing your wisdom and advice and a little bit about your career. Was there anything else you wanted to mention to anyone before we sign off?
I'm truly honored that you would ask me to do this, and that anybody's interested in anything that I have to say. But I just listen. It's very easy right now to get mired down in the darkness of everything that's happening. But I also think it's really a time of rebirth. And you look what's happening just to our planet and how it's being reborn in many ways, and a time of great creativity. And I think everybody needs to take advantage. Artists that we are need to take advantage of that and know that from this, some great stuff will come. And don't give up. That's the one thing I always say to your generation or the generation after me is to believe in yourself, believe in your art, and believe in yourself, and don't let anybody else define you. It's really hard to do that when you're a kid of social media, when you're a child of social media. But I would say, just believe in Graham Phillips is just texting me, by the way. He played Evan Goldman in 13. Graham Phillips.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
But you have to believe in yourself. Just don't let anybody else define you. Truly, however, you have to learn how to do that. It's really important. It's really important. And cry when you're hurt, and then move on.
Mm. Wise words to live by from the phenomenal Robert Horn, Tony Award winner, and just a very, very sweet person. Thank you so much for being on the show today. You're very welcome.
Who's the baby?
It's my niece. I don't know. Do you want to see her?
Yes, of course I want to see her.
Hey,
she's my next generation of audience.
Oh, yeah, her name's Kennedy. Everyone's gonna get to see the baby. Ooh, this is Kennedy.
Oh, Kennedy, hi. Oh,
can you say hi?
Cute. Kennedy,
yeah, she's 4 months today.
She's gonna be a star. She's gonna be a star.
Oh, look at her smiling.
Oh my God. Oh.
All right. Well, we're gonna sign off together, Kennedy. Okay. Well, be kind, everyone. Tell someone how much you love them. I love you, Robert, and Kennedy loves you too. Bye, everybody.
Anytime, anything you ever need, we're here.
Oh, all right, here.
Take the kid. Take the kid.
Bye, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Catch me next time on Of All Trades with Nolan Robinson. Bye.